Yanis Varoufakis exposed how the eurozone will kill itself as its rising debt explodes into the trillions, with fears it could topple the EU. The EU has struggled to grapple with its coronavirus vaccination program misgivings this week, forcing a humiliating U-turn after it threatened to cut off vaccine supplies to Britain. Brussels has since attempted to give credibility to its position, this time lashing out at vaccine providers for being too slow in delivering doses. The EU is nevertheless confident it will vaccinate 70% of the adult population across member states by the end of summer. Countries are now effectively at the mercy of Brussels as the EU negotiated on behalf of member states, to avoid competition and help reduce costs. It has left European governments helpless and idle, waiting to vaccinate their populations, with some countries having already been able to get the program underway. These were in minute numbers, however, compared to the UK, who opted to not be a part of the EU vaccine scheme last year. The vaccine crisis, many have noted, exposes a pressing fault in the EU's makeup, with scores of states bound to the bloc, often at the mercy of decision-making in Brussels. Most countries are already in the eurozone, the monetary area in which 19 states have adopted the euro, appear to be in debt, often worsened by the European Central Bank. Robert Toombs, the renowned British historian, told Express.co.uk that this left almost every country trapped and bound to the EU. Many of these countries have been forced to seek bailouts and loans with hefty interest rates attached by the EU Bank and the International Monetary Fund (IMF). Greece is perhaps the most salient example. In order to avoid default following the calamity of the 2008 financial crash, it loaned money from the EU and IMF, and is still to this day paying back a sum in the billions of euros. The Eurozone's debt in general has soared in recent years, made worse by the pandemic, increasing in 2019 to 95.1% of collected GDP. The former left-wing Minister of Finance for Greece, Yanis Varoufakis, predicted in 2016 that this debt, as well as debt around the world, will eventually implode outfits like the EU. In a TED Talk, he said, "Over the last 3 months, in the US, in Britain and in the Eurozone, we have invested collectively $3.4 trillion, £2.5 trillion, on all the wealth-producing goods. Things like industrial plants, machinery, office blocks, schools, roads, railways and so on.